Bien. Mesdames, Messieurs.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gave me great pleasure to receive here in Paris Jens Stoltenberg, and please allow me to thank him for his visit. We had an opportunity to meet and to meet on the occasion of the special meeting of the heads of state and government in NATO on the 25th of May, and Secretary General Stoltenberg also took the floor at the European Council in Brussels last Thursday, and I think this was very much appreciated ahead of the launch of the permanent European cooperation. We, a minute ago, talked about our security environment, and this gave us an opportunity to talk about the major topics we will be working on over the coming month as we are beginning to prepare for the NATO summit of July 2018. I have in mind, in particular, the deterrence and defense posture of the alliance, also NATO's role in strengthening the capacity or capacity building of our partners as well, including in the context of the coalition against Daesh. I also have in mind the adaptation of NATO's structures. NATO has a role to play, like it did in the war against Daesh in Syria and Iraq. It will also play a role after the war. Same goes for Afghanistan and all the situation, post-conflict situations. We can become new theaters of operation. And in this respect, we decided to keep in touch on a regular basis. And in general, we talked about all the tension zones in the Middle East, in Africa as well, and I think it is important that we have these strategic discussions. This also gave me an opportunity to state once again France's singular role in the alliance. You talked about our strategic review with the Minister of Defense last night, and NATO indeed plays a key role in the defense and security of Europe. And this military organization is also a concrete embodiment of our partnership with the United States and Canada, which is very dear to me. I also stated once again, said Secretary General of NATO, that France will stay an independent, demanding but credible member of the alliance. And in this respect, our next military planning law will be decisive in raising to 2% of national wealth our defense resources by 2025. We're doing what it takes to do so, and we're the third contributor to the budget of NATO. We are amongst the very few enjoying a seasoned defense system which contributes to the security of France, Europe, and that of the alliance. Also reaffirm France's wish to continue to contribute to the alliance schemes within the framework of collective defense. This is what we're doing today with the Lynx mission in Estonia within the framework of the enhanced forward presence. A couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact, I went to visit our troops and I could acknowledge the quality of the work that is being done there. To conclude, please allow me to pay tribute to Secretary General Stoltenberg for setting us free from a pointless debate which for a long time hampered our collective reflection. The discussion was about whether or not the NATO was compatible with Defense Europe. And last week, when you took the floor in front of the EU heads of state and government, you very much proved that, yes, it was the case. Defense Europe is one that will be in a better position to contribute to its own security and to be a credible and efficient contribution to the alliance as well. It is under your impulse, dear Jens, that with time, the relationship very much improved between NATO and the EU, and it is also thanks to this that the two organizations are now in a position to cooperate. And Europe could only put in place or launch the permanent structured cooperation, which is very dear to me, the one we launched last week. We could only do it because we were able to convince all of the member states that it was compatible with NATO. Dear Jens, dear Secretary General, I am once again very pleased to receive you here, and allow me to congratulate you on your re-election. And let me tell you that we will continue to work together, closely so, in full trust for the purpose of preparing for the next summit of the Alliance. Thank you very much and welcome.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, and dear Emmanuel, it's really a great pleasure to be here in Paris and to meet with you, not least because of your strong personal commitment to multinational institutions, to international cooperation, and to NATO as a transatlantic alliance. And also, I would like to thank you for your strong commitment to the idea of modernization, both modernizing the French society, but also supporting the efforts to modernize the NATO alliance. And France is a key NATO ally. You provide robust forces and capabilities. You have proven again and again a strong will to deploy forces when needed. And by this, you really contribute significantly to our collective defense. France is also contributing in other ways. You are one of the lead nations for our very high readiness joint task force. You contribute forces to our increased presence in the eastern part of the alliance. I met French troops in Estonia recently, committed professional troops, and you will also contribute with forces to Lithuania next year. France is also playing a key role in the fight against terrorism. You have a significant presence in Sahel, and you play a very important role in the global coalition to defeat Daesh, Iraq, and Syria. France is also leading by example, by a very strong and clear commitment to meet the guideline of spending 2% of GDP on defense. So France is really a highly valued NATO ally. We just had an excellent discussion, and we addressed how we can make sure that NATO continues to adapt. NATO has already responded to a more demanding and challenging security environment, which we have seen not least since 2014. We have implemented the biggest reinforcement of our collective defense since the end of the Cold War, and we have stepped up our efforts to fight international terrorism. But we need to do more, and we discussed the next steps in this adaptation, including the NATO command structure and how we can do more in the fight against terrorism. And I strongly believe that one of the best weapons we have in the fight against terrorism is to train local forces, is to build local capacity, to enable local forces to stabilize their own countries. And that is exactly what NATO is doing in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and also what we have done before in the Balkans, and as a member of the global coalition to defeat ISIS or Daesh. We are now looking into how we can step up our efforts to train Iraqi forces to help them stabilize their own country. Then, as you mentioned, we also addressed NATO-EU cooperation. And I welcome the fact that we have been able to lift NATO-EU cooperation up to a new level, and that we are working together on many issues, including hybrid, cyber, fighting terrorism, and also military mobility. I am a strong believer in stronger European defense. NATO has actually called for stronger European defense for a long time. And when Europe now is stepping up, we should welcome those efforts. Because stronger European defense, more defense cooperation within the European Union, can give more defense spending, more capabilities, and fairer transatlantic burden sharing within the alliance. We only have to make sure that what we do is complementary, that we don't compete, but that we work together and avoid duplication. So I really appreciate the close cooperation with France, and I look forward to continue to work with you. And I look forward to welcome you to Brussels to the summit next July next year. So thank you so much.
Merci. Y a-t-il des questions?
It's Johan Falnes from the Norwegian News Agency. Sorry for speaking in English. Mr. President, let's continue the pointless debate for a bit. If your visions for European defense become a reality, to what degree will Europe still be dependent upon non-EU allies for its security? Can Europe be truly sovereign when its security is contingent upon the protection by nations outside of Europe? And also, Mr. Secretary General, President Macron is obviously very ambitious on the EU's behalf. Do you feel it's necessary to hold him back a bit? And are there any aspects of his ideas regarding defense that you have asked him to maybe give a bit more careful thought?
Je vais vous montrer un graphique que m'a donné
Please allow me
le
to
secrétaire
show
général.
you a document given to me by the Secretary General. These are the contributions of non-American members to the collective defense. As you see, things are, the contributions have been on the mend since 2015. Like I said, France is the third contributor, and France will increase substantially its contribution each year because we are working on a trajectory of increasing to reach 2% by 2025. So let me reassure you, we have a sovereign power from a military perspective. France has an army which has all capabilities, which is very well trained, equipped, and which intervenes on all theaters of operations, no matter what the alliance does, but also an army that fits within the alliance, and by increasing our contribution, we contribute to the trajectory. And thanks to the contribution I mentioned and the trajectory mentioned, we contribute to a burden sharing, a better burden sharing. So we are shouldering our responsibilities. We are shouldering our responsibilities regarding our own security and defense. This is the purpose of the strategic review and the military programming law to be adopted in the weeks to come, or in any case by this summer. And so we are fully refigurating our army, our troops. France has a full strategic independence. It is sovereign. We go wherever we feel we shall in order to guarantee our security. But also, France fully fits within the effort requested by the alliance, and we are in coherence with it, thanks to the 2% goal. We have the same coherence and the same, we see the same things within the European Union. In addition to what we have already, 17 projects already in Europe, defense projects which either we contribute to or projects we are leading, and we can walk in that direction fully in coherence with what we're doing with the alliance. And behind this structured cooperation, France wishes to have, first of all, a fund. It is not to replace, but it is to add to what France is doing. The purpose is to invest at the European level. It is about capacity building. It is about joint intervention possibilities. And you heard what I said at the Sorbonne. We also want more cooperation between our defense ministers. So be it within the alliance or at the European EU level, we want to stick to our strategy in accordance with the speech I gave. It is about increasing our resources, our capacity.
I'm not concerned about the fact that President Macron has great ambitions on behalf of European defense. I actually welcome that, because there is no contradiction between strong Europe and strong transatlantic bond. Actually, the stronger Europe, the stronger the transatlantic bond will be, because stronger Europe will contribute to fairer burden sharing and more balanced burden sharing. So there is in no way we have to choose between either strong Europe or strong transatlantic bond. I think that very well goes together. And that has been my main message since I started as Secretary General, that NATO should welcome stronger Europe, because that will strengthen the European Union, it will strengthen Europe, and it will also strengthen the burden sharing within the transatlantic alliance. And I welcome also the fact that the European Union are now looking into concrete projects on how to develop new capabilities, because these capabilities will strengthen European defense, and that will strengthen the European pillar inside NATO. And there is no way we should have competition between NATO and the European Union, partly because we know that more than 90% or 94% of the people in the European Union, they live in a NATO country. Second, we know that the 22 members of NATO are also members of the European Union. So if we had a competition between the European Union and NATO, that would be the same as competing with ourselves. And that's absolutely without any purpose. And thirdly, non-EU allies are key for European security. After Brexit, 80% of NATO's defense spending will come from non-EU allies. And 3 of the 4 battle groups we have in the Baltic countries will be led by non-EU allies. So there is no way we can choose between either Europe or the transatlantic bond. We need both, and that's key for our security. It's actually only in one area I'm a bit concerned when it comes to the ambitions of France, and that is when it comes to handball. Because the plan for Norway was to win. Norway lost. But as Secretary General of NATO, I am pleased to note that France is a NATO ally. So actually, NATO won the handball championship on Sunday.
I'm not the one who raised the issue. C'est une autre question.
Oui, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour, Patrick Sauze de BFM TV sur le.
A question from BFM TV regarding Syria, which is also a cause of concern for NATO. Syria. On Sunday, you said it was important to talk to Bashar al-Assad. The problem is that he does not want to talk to you, and he kind of stated it clearly by saying, blaming France, according to him, for supporting terrorism. So well, this is diplomacy. We've seen what happened yesterday together with Minister Le Drian. But there is, accordingly, a peace process which is going nowhere, a failure, as a matter of fact. So how do you think you can succeed, given that everybody has failed, and the additional challenge is not only to get him to the table of negotiations, but also to find an international solution? Indeed, I will not comment the inappropriate comments that were made. Minister Le Drian's response to it is enough. As to the rest of it, like you said, the discussions are in a stalemate. Peace, well, we've seen what happened in Sochi or Astana. There are no results, there's no outcome today, because this is not inclusive. It does not enable a fair representation of the opposition to Bashar al-Assad. I personally do not believe that we can build a sustainable peace and political solution without Syria and the Syrians. That being said, Assad is not Syria alone. Our priority was the fight against Daesh, is the fight against Daesh. This is the reason why what he said is unacceptable, because if somebody can win against Daesh anytime soon, it is the coalition. All others were ambiguous, or their priority was to hit, to target their opponents, whereas we were coherent, because we have an enemy, this enemy is Daesh. The Syrian people have an enemy. As a matter of fact, I can see that there are millions of Syrians all around the region or the world, in Canada, in the US, in the region as well, and their enemy is Assad. This is a reality. So if we want to enable stability in Syria, we want the necessary political process, we need everyone around the table, we need to get the parties around the table, and it is not about a sustainable status quo, because it means millions of political opponents would have to stay abroad. Listen at the King of Jordan, who will be here in a few hours. Listen to the Prime Minister of Lebanon. Listen to Turkey. Everyone says they cannot keep having such a burden. So we need stability to come back to Syria. We'll therefore continue to work with our partners in a very conclusive manner. In this process, the representatives of Assad will be there, given that he is currently leading the country. So I'm realistic. I acknowledge that they shall be at the table of negotiations. That being said, we cannot imagine that some of the opposition would be left aside. We need a process enabling all the Syrians, including those who had to run away, to be represented. National sovereignty is not the violence of one man. It is not either the influence of external powers. So, first of all, I do not think it is for external powers to try and impose peace, their own peace. We've seen it in Iraq or in Libya. Neither do I feel that we should show any complacency with somebody who believes he embodies the entire country. But it is always difficult to build peace, and the role of France in the region is to contribute to building peace, being very demanding, and making sure that pluralism is complied with everywhere, taking into account religious, ethnical, and political differences. And Lebanon today is probably an outstanding laboratory in terms of pluralism. One last question to the Secretary General.
Journaliste de la chaîne Phoenix TV de Chine.
A question from a Chinese television. Secretary General, what do you think of the Chinese army and the relationship between China and NATO? Mr. President, what about the importance of your coming trip to China in January?
China is a nation with increasing military and economic powers, and therefore for NATO, of course, it is important to relate to China. We have some political dialogue with China, and we will like to expand and to strengthen the contacts with China. But at the same time, NATO's responsibility is focused on collective defense in Europe and for our NATO allied countries. So we are not a global alliance, we are a regional security alliance.
Maintenant, j'attache beaucoup d'importance au déplacement que je vais effectuer en effet en Chine.
Indeed, I will be visiting China in the early days of next year. It is very important to me. It is a token of friendship. Friendship because it will be giving me an opportunity to continue the discussions I started with President Xi a couple of months ago. And also very important because of the relation between our two countries from the very beginning. And at the same time, I want to be very concrete from an economic, cultural, scientific point of view, as well as in terms of international strategy. Together, China is a major ally in the fight against climate change. Chinese commitment was very important, given in particular the decision taken by the United States and the Deputy Prime Minister announced, the Chinese Deputy Prime Minister announced the willingness of China to put in place a carbon market last week. This is very important, and also because China is a multilateral power. It is very important, therefore, that we can exchange our views. I will explain my vision of the world, and I will listen to President Xi. I will discuss with him, and it will give us an opportunity to continue to build our bonds. I think this visit is an opportunity to open a new page, a new chapter marked by shared ambition and reciprocity. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.